Okay, this is the first video on intervals. And we give you the principles of intervals and you work them out in all keys. Then after this, we'll go into analyzing the intervals within chords. It's simple enough though, not a big deal. Okay, intervals. There are only two classes of intervals, normal and altered. That's it. Now, let's take the C major scale because that's the place to start since we don't read black keys. That's a normal interval, C to D. That's a normal interval. Normal. So, what kind of a definition can you devise from that? A normal interval is when the upper note of the interval is within the scale, the major scale, of the lower note. So, B flat major scale. Remember your tetrachords. You get your B flat and your E flat. That's normal. Those are all normal. If the upper note is within the scale, the major scale, of the lower note. D major. It's a second, a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. It just goes by the number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But you've got to always include the bottom note as this major scale of reference. Major second, major third, a fourth, a fifth, a major sixth, a major seventh, and an octave. Your major intervals are the seconds, thirds, sixths, and sevenths. Make a note of these things. Again, the major intervals are major seconds, in all scales. Major third, the major sixth, and the major seventh. In D, the major second, the major third, the major sixth, the major sixth, and the major seventh. The fourths and the fifths are normal and they're perfect. You don't need to indicate perfect fourth and perfect fifth. If they're normal, just a fourth and a fifth. That'll do it. Okay, B flat. Okay, your scale of reference is the B flat scale because that will be the lower note of an interval. That's a second, that's a third, a fourth and a fifth, a sixth and a seventh, and an octave. Those notes that I played were the upper note of the scale, from the scale of the B flat major. So, that's about it for normal intervals. Simple as that. Okay, coming back to C major. Any major interval can be made a half step smaller by lowering the upper note. So this is a major second because it's normal, it's major. Alter it. Now remember we have normal intervals and we have altered intervals. Well, C to D flat, for example. Or C to C sharp. It's a half step, in other words. So your half step is always a minor second. Because you could raise the bottom note, that makes it a half step smaller. So there's your minor second from C sharp to D. Major third. Make it a half step smaller by lowering the top note, it's a minor third. Raise the bottom note, and it's a minor third. So C sharp to D is a minor third, or C to E flat is a minor third. Okay? F6, minor sixth, C to A flat. C to A is a major sixth, that's normal. This is altered because you've got a note outside of this C major scale. Or raise the bottom note, that's a major sixth. That's a minor sixth, a major sixth. Okay? Major seventh because it's a half step below the octave. That's a half step, by the way, so it's a major, that's a minor second from the B flat major scale. But since it's in the C major scale, it's easier to think of it as just a half step. And a half step is a minor second. Seventh, major seventh, and it's major, not minor. But if you lower that top note, it's a half step smaller. It's a minor seventh. You can raise the bottom note to make it a half step smaller. Becomes a minor seventh. We also can have certain intervals that can be made larger. There's a major second. There's an augmented second. We do have them. But now an augmented second is the same, or enharmonic as we call it, as a minor third. Make notes of these, will you, as you're listening to this video? It's very important that you understand all of this. Okay, now other intervals that can be made a half step larger. A perfect fourth can be made larger into an augmented fourth. There's no particular symbol for an augmented fourth, so you use just a sharp sign. Sharp 4 is an augmented fourth. Also, you can take the lower note down to make it into a sharp 4. Now, an interesting thing about these intervals are that these are tritones. Whole step, whole step, whole step. 3 whole tones is a tritone. There's a major fourth, there's an augmented fourth, and guess what? A step, and another step, there's a tritone. This tritone is, of course, one of the most important intervals in the dominant chord. Okay, a fifth. Augmented fifth, yeah, diminished fifth. Your fourths and your fifths cannot be made minor. They're either made diminished or they're made augmented. So make a note of that. Write these things out so that you know you have all this information at your disposal. Okay, that's about it that I can think of. Oh, a sixth. An augmented sixth, C to A sharp. This is an interval that composers use quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but frequently. Augmented sixth. But an augmented sixth is the same as a minor seventh. And sometimes they'll use a minor seventh, especially if they're going down. They'll call it an augmented sixth if they're going up. For instance, this to this, or this to this. See, you're going upward, so you use the augmented sixth to go up, but you use the minor seventh if you're going down. It's a little fine point, and composers don't always stick with that, but it's sort of a general rule. Okay? Now, from those principles, I would suggest you get to work on your manuscript paper and write them out. And remember, everything is related to the C major scale, not the C major scale, but to the major scale as the mother of our music. Okay, do some work on this. In all scales, don't use a key signature because that just gives it to you. Like key of B major, you'll have F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. Put that in the key signature, then all you do is write out your notes. You can do that, but it might be better if you write F sharp, B and F sharp, for example. Use always no sharps, no flats in the key signature. But if you want to practice key signatures, go ahead and do it that way also. This is your education. This has nothing to do with your getting a grade from me. I could care less whether you, well, I could care. But as far as being an educator, a teacher, I'm not going to give you a grade. Grades mean nothing to me. What does mean something to me is whether you are willing to do the work, willing to teach yourself based upon the principles that I'm giving you. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. understand the language of music, and this is part of the language of music. Now, we've got to apply this to chords, and that'll be our next video. So let's sign off for right now until we get to our next video, will be the analysis of chords. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.